wanted to come on and do this, to be honest. I was tempted to cancel it, to tell you the truth. But you know what? We come here in after victory, we come here after defeat. And for the first time in quite a while, I come on here after a cup defeat. You know, last time we lost in a cup competition was that semi-final against Rangers. The last time we went out this early in a cup was against, it was at Ross County in the second round of the League Cup back in 2020, 2021. And today Celtic go out the League Cup, no more treble this season. It was short-lived. Rodgers' unbeaten cup record comes to an end as well in Scotland. We went out there today with a terrible performance, and we got what we deserved. We were outclassed, we were outplayed. We were really, really bad from start to finish. There was no positives to talk about in the game. You know, usually I come on here and I try and do my best to do a kind of match reaction before I just generally talk on individual players and the result itself in the grand scheme of things. I like to do an actual match reaction, but I just feel like there's no match to actually react to because Celtic were pretty poor. And that right there is the alarm bells, that right there is the warning signs, and that right there is the message that has to be sent to the board that money has to be spent. Now, I understand frustrations towards Brendan Rodgers today, and don't worry, I'm not going to just sit here and back Brendan Rodgers and say everything's fine, I love him, and yeah, I do love Rodgers, and I'm not going to suddenly, after one loss, be like, oh, Rodgers out the door, and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to sit here and fully defend them as well. But what I am saying is, today, that team should be on the park against Kilmarnock. We're playing, you know, a B team almost. I can't believe we're still at a point where we're talking about seriously challenging for European football, and we've got players like Anthony Ralston, and we've got players that are, you know, just through the door, not proven, we don't know much about them. We've got players like Taylor, who looks miles off it. We've got players like Maida, who are meant to be the Jota replacement. A lot of people will be saying that I've changed my tune. I know that for a fact. But listen, it's true. You go out there today. That's the warning signs. That is the kind of alarm bells that need to be sounding now to the Celtic board that we need to back Brendan Rodgers. We need to back the manager and back the team. By the way, thank you for the donations right off the bat. I'll get into them later on. I'll come back to all the donations because I want to get my rant out of the way. I want to get my talking out of the way, and then I'll come to all your points and come to everything else. That team today was diabolical on the park. We were very, very poor. We didn't create nearly enough chances. We didn't create any quality chances. Celtic had 3 shots in target today. It felt like we had none. The shots that we did have in target weren't of any quality. It took us, you know, till they scored their goal in the 60th minute to actually wake up and get ourselves into the game. Waited far too long. First half performance was one of the worst halves of football I've ever seen as a Celtic supporter. And I just wonder now where we do go in these last 2 weeks remaining in the transfer window. What will the board do? Will they stand idly by and wait and just hope that the result comes against St Johnstone next week and hope that we end off before the international break with a decent performance against Rangers? Or will they actually act now and get the money spent and get the players in that we need to get? We are at a point right now which, listen, the other day I was live on YouTube, right? I was live and I was saying I'm not underwhelmed with the transfer window. I just think we need more. And I stand by that. Once again, I'm not underwhelmed, but there's still work to be done. Joe Hart has been finished for months, and he's still out there passing it to the opposition. He's still out there passing it straight to players in the other team. And that's the kind of thing that if you've seen in any other football team, it would be addressed. But for some reason, Celtic are standing idly by and allowing it to happen. Anthony Ralston, I'd be surprised if he got a start for anybody in the top half of this league, this country. I would be shocked if he started for the Hearts, the Hibs and Aberdeen. But yet he's starting games for us. Greg Taylor, he was brilliant last season, but come on. We are better than Greg Taylor. We need better than Greg Taylor. And then moving forward, I feel like we just still need that significant quality in around the team. We're sitting there with a side that has one recognised striker with all out injured. One recognised striker. And everything that we've done today, it just showed so little quality. It showed so little character. And it gives me the fear that if we're in this position any more times this season, you know, I still have confidence that Celtic will... It's not... I see somebody saying knee-jerk reaction there on Ralston. It's not. Ralston's been rotten for months. He's been terrible for months. And I've been trying to keep it light on him. He's been rotten. Absolutely rotten. He's nowhere near good enough to play for Celtic. He should not be playing games for us. He had his time, right? I'm not going to just go in on Ralston. I don't want to make it like that because it's not. The whole team today deserve criticism everywhere. Players like McGregor failed to rise to the challenge. They failed to pull us out of a rut that we were in for so long in the game. It goes on everybody today. It goes on the manager. It goes on all the players. It's not about individuals. It's a whole team performance. Everywhere was just lacking today. And you know what's really frustrating? You look on at players that we know have such a great amount of quality. You know there's players in there, and that includes the new signings as well. We know that there's players that are good, but especially the guys that we know have been here a long time. Your Kyogos, your Dyson Maidas, your Callum McGregors. We know the quality these guys have, but today they couldn't. You couldn't show that, and I just feel like they didn't want to show it. I just felt like there was such a lack of determination within the legs of them. I thought there was such a lack of effort and urgency, and that's not what you expect from these guys, because you look at Dyson Maida today, right? You look at him especially. He looked as though he didn't have a clue what he was doing out there in the football park, and he's someone who's been criticised time after time after time for maybe not having that technical ability that's needed. And when you see performances like that, it's really hard to argue it. It's hard to argue that he has got the technical ability. It's hard to argue that he has got what it takes to be starting games for Celtic. It's good in phases, you know, when he's got that burst of pace and, you know, he can open up a game for us. But today's the kind of game where you needed that. And he had one big opportunity, for example. He had one massive opportunity to try and open the park for us, run with the ball and use what his main attribute is. That's his pace, that's his speed. And he blitters it up the park to absolutely nobody. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that kind of... You know when there's intelligence in a footballer, right? And that's the kind of moment there that makes you go, has he actually got the intelligence to make these things happen when you're in this position in a game? And that's, to bring it back to the original point that I'm trying to make, that's what worries me. Because if we're down 1-0 in games away from home, or even at Celtic Park, it could be anywhere, it could be Europe, could be domestic, it doesn't matter. If we're down 1-0, I just don't think that we have what it takes to pull ourselves out of that position if we play like that time after time when we are behind in games. And that is really worrying. The board need to look at that today. And I'm sure Brendan Rodgers, obviously I've not listened to him speak yet, I've not listened to the post-match interviews. He'll be incredibly disappointed, as he should be. He needs to take a lot of the flak for today. The performance was flat. Whatever we set out to do was not how you win a game at Rugby Park. You go back a couple of years ago to his first tenure in charge of Celtic, right? You go back to that period of time, and Brendan Rodgers' sides really had a problem. And listen, Kilmarnock isn't an easy place to go. You've got to put respect on the opponent today. They were really good defensively. They have been good to start this season. They beat Rangers with a clean sheet. They managed to keep a clean sheet against Hearts as well. They've now kept a clean sheet against Celtic. Defensively, they're a good side. You've got to give respect to the opposition. I'm not just going to say it's a fluke and it's because Celtic are just rotten that we never done it today. Kilmarnock were good. They deserved the win. They deserve to go through to the next round of the Cup. But you go back to Brendan Rodgers' first tenure in charge. We always went to Rugby Park and we always done really bad. We always played poorly and we were very few and far between when it came to getting results. It just felt like that again today, and Brendan Rodgers should be able to recognise that from the first spell that he had as Celtic manager, to come in and alter it and make changes, especially with a younger and better group of players, because it is a better group of players that he had in his first few visits there. Brendan Rodgers should be able to identify what went wrong on those first visits back in his first tenure and be able to change that going into today's game. And if anything, it looks as though he's made it worse, the tactics and the style to go there and play at Rugby Park today. He's tinkered it, but he's actively made it worse. And that's something I didn't think was possible because we were rotten in his first tenure going to Rugby Park. So the blame does have to be shared throughout the entire group of players and coaching. It's not on one person today, because you have got quality players there who should be able to drag you out of situations, and they just didn't look arsed. They didn't look as though they wanted to. And I'm confident we'll bounce back next week against St Johnstone, and I'm still confident heading into the Rangers game as well. I'm not going to let that shake my confidence for what our aims are this season, but you need to address that before it's too late, and that's what they need to take that from today. They need to take whatever went wrong there, and they need to take it to the higher ups at the club and say, right, well, we're talking about looking at a £7 million left back, and we're talking about looking at the likes of Daniel Podence. Go and do it then. Don't look. Don't fanny around with it. Actually, actively be interested and actively do something about it. Go in and make a bid. Go in and have a serious conversation. Don't just admire from afar. Because the only way we're going to get better is if we go out and sign these kind of players. We need guys, like, we're talking about, is it Merlin from Nantes in France, right? £7 million. It would be a significant upgrade in Greg Taylor, and you need some significant upgrades over the park. We still need a significant upgrade in the final third, especially on that left-hand side. And you know what, funny, let's go back to the game a minute here. I want to actually say something, because for weeks, Haksabanovic has been criticised heavily, right? People have said he should maybe go, yada yada. Haksabanovic came on the park today, and in the final 20-30 minutes, it was probably one of the only shining lights for me. I'm not going to go out and say he had an absolute blinder. He was fantastic, and this, that, next thing. But he was probably the best player in the park. He was making things happen. I thought when him and Yang came on, we certainly had a bit more activity in the final third. We looked as though we were more interested, and we could have been positive in doing something. But, you've got someone like him sitting on the bench. Make the change earlier. Give him more of an opportunity in other games. Same with Yang as well. Instead, we stuck with Maida for so long when he was having a terrible game. If it was up to me, Haksabanovic would be playing over Maida when it comes to the game against St Johnstone next week. But the point being, someone like Podence, I still think it's unrealistic that Celtic actually go out and do that. I don't think it will happen. But you've got to go out and have a conversation about it. You've got to show seriousness in the transfer market. You've got to be aggressive. And Celtic have been very opposite of aggressive. We've been tame. We've been mild in the transfer market. As I said, I'm not underwhelmed with our signings, but I still think there's a lot more work to be done. We need 2 or 3 quality players to come in the window before it shuts. And that today has to be that's the only positive that I could potentially take from today's performance, is that it might help the board actually wake up, smell the coffee, and realise that something has to be done if we're serious. You can't bring in a manager, and you can't say all these things around bringing in a manager that you want to take it to another level and you want to go and challenge on a bigger stage, to then move backwards. It's very, very counterproductive. It's very stupid. And it just ultimately makes us as fans and us as a club look foolish, because we've bought into it. So you've got to go out and back that up, and I hope the board actually do that. I really do. But no, a very big lack of identity in everything that we've done today. I just felt like we were just lost in the game. And it's frustrating because I hate watching us in that situation, because we know the quality we have there, both on the park and off the park with a manager. We've got a manager who's won 7 out of 7, and up until today was undefeated in domestic cup competitions. You know the quality you've got everywhere and around this football club at the minute, but when you can't put that to action, it makes it so much more frustrating. And we don't want to get back to the point where we're protesting the board and we're protesting what we're doing, and there's fans angry at Celtic Park. The atmosphere at the club over the past 2 years has been tremendous, and they should be capitalising on that, and they should be prioritising it to make it better and to keep it going. But without the backing and without actually trying to build on that, it's just going to go backwards, and that's when you get angry fans, because I know a lot of us are angry today, and that makes things very, very irritating. Before I come on to you guys, and I'll get all your questions and points, sorry, I've got to make myself more comfortable here. It's a very uncomfortable rant. I'm going to come into some of your points and opinions in a moment. The last point I was going to make when I come on to performances, yeah, look, we're unlucky to concede the goal we do. I think a lot of people are still campaigning it to be offside, and I can understand why. When you draw the line, it looks as though, part of the body is actually over the line, which to me would go, that's offside. But I wasn't surprised that it was given. I expected it to be. I thought that when you look at the new boys playing together, Lagerbielke and Nawrowski, I actually, although we lost the game, I actually don't think they looked bad together. It just didn't help that moving forward, they'd done nothing to help build off what they were doing from the back. But on a day like this, there's no point in talking about positives on the park, because there was never any. So, we take it on the chin, we move on. The most we can get this season is a double, of course. Which, look, if we end the season with this, is the fun thing about being a Celtic fan, isn't it? As soon as you go out of cup competition, it's the end of the world, isn't it? And we just don't like it because we've been so used to success over the past few years. We've been spoiled with success. And I don't want that to stop, absolutely not. But it's crazy because, like, you wouldn't think that we had gone through like 130 years of existence with only 3 trebles up until a few years ago. Because now when you lose a cup game and now when you don't win a treble, it's the end of the world. It's crazy. It's nuts. Like, these cup exits were very familiar for the vast majority of being a Celtic fan. But now obviously it's inflated because of how successful we've been. But as it should be, because you want to win every game. Look, there's nothing nice about losing. But look, you know, we'll come back stronger. I do genuinely still have very high hopes for where this season goes. I still believe in Brendan Rodgers massively. I will until, you know, time calls for it. 3 games into a domestic season, I'm certainly not going to throw my toys out the pram and say that it's all over and start greeting about it. But that needs to be improved on today, obviously, because losing's not what you want to do at Celtic Football Club. You want to win every single game. So, I'm going to jump into the donations first of all because, of course, they've donated their hard-earned money, and that's only fair. And I'm going to come on to your guys' points and questions and everything else. It's nuts. I'm looking at the match stats from today. Celtic, 70% possession, but you wouldn't think it. You would not think Celtic had 70% of the ball possession today. We were really, really poor in possession. We didn't want to do anything with it. You know, the defenders were passing it side to side. And then when we tried to move forward from it, nobody was showing. Nobody was being there for the players. And there was a couple of points when we were moving forward as well, and nobody was getting into spaces and areas. It looked as though we were just so static in everything we were doing, and that's just not what Celtic should be about. So hopefully it's addressed in Lennoxtown. I'm going to run through the donations very quickly. Thank you to Beam, who's donated £5, saying no style, no tactics, no character, no drive, no imagination. Shambolic and nowhere near good enough. How do we improve this? Where do we go? Well, that's what will be interesting to watch over the next few weeks, I suppose. You know, we scored 7 goals in the first 2 games of the season, and you wouldn't think that today. We couldn't score a brothel. We were terrible. You wouldn't think we wanted to score, and that needs to be addressed in training. I'm unsure what currency this actually is. ARS, 20 ARS. I don't know what ARS is. I'm not going to lie. Somebody will probably tell me. But thank you to James for the super sticker. £2 from Chris, who says we need Daniel Podence from Wolves. He's got goals. And then Blake with the double donation. He says left back, right back, goalkeeper and winger needed it desperately. And then, by the way, why was Kyogo so deep near the end of the game? I was confused by that as well. And I don't know if it was just because we kind of overloaded with attackers who wanted to cut inside. Haksabanovic, who wants to come in. But still, even at that, it doesn't require Kyogo to drop deeper. I don't know. Argentine pesos, is that what it is? Wow, okay, thank you. Yeah, I was confused by that, why Kyogo was sitting so deep in the game towards the end, especially when you need something. But yeah, thank you for the donation so far. Remember, you can donate if you like, but most importantly, like and subscribe. Let's get into some of your thoughts and such for the last 5 or 10 minutes. Still waiting to see what the cup draw will be. It was the nastiest cup draw we could have got, but it's no excuse, you know. Like, as soon as the draw was done, I remember I was in Belgium when they done the draw, and I was on the way back from the Grand Prix. I remember just seeing Kelly away, and my head kind of went to my hands at the time. I was like, I hate Kelly away. I hate it. Plastic surface, tough defensive opposition. It's never easy, but it's no excuse. You know, you should be winning those games. So yeah, let's get some of your guys' thoughts. Rather lose a cup game than drop points in the league, says Jam. I'm actually the opposite. As long as you're not obviously losing a lot of league games. I feel like if we dropped 3 points today so early on in the season, I would have been like, right, it's not the end of the world. Rangers have dropped points. We'll make up for it. But the cup's won and done, and I want to win a treble, you know. So I actually don't agree, but you know, it all depends when you look at it come the end of the season, where you would have rather dropped. But who knows? We might not have room to drop any points come the end of the season, so it's always really hard to tell. So Rangers got Livingston at home. I heard the draw's already started. Rangers got Livingston at home. I wonder who Kelly will end up getting. We're not there anyway, haha. Don't think the 2 centre backs didn't have enough time to gel. Look, honestly, as individual performances, I don't think they were that bad today, any of them. I liked Nawrowski's ambition to move forward with the ball. I thought he was good at driving out from the back, which is what we need in our centre-halves. And Lagerbielke, a couple of slack passes here and there, but he's been through the door 5 minutes. It was probably too soon for him to be starting the game. But we were put in a position where we had to start him today. So yeah, opinions on the penalty shout, regardless, shouldn't need to be relying on decisions to go on. I'm just at the point where I'm actually just reserved to agreeing with what happens because I'm not surprised by it. I don't think it. At the time, I was shouting for a penalty when I was watching the telly, but when I looked at it back with a more level head, it was probably the right decision to give. But at the end of the day, yeah, we shouldn't be relying on decisions like that. We shouldn't be in a position where we're 1-0 down, needing a penalty to get us out of the game. Jamveen, Yang is class, Hacks is class, Maida seemed off today, and Taylor is awful. I see a lot of Greg Taylor, a lot of the fullbacks. We need signings there. We need Johnson coming back into the team will feel like a new signing, but we actually do need signings on both sides. We need them on both sides. We need a left back and a right back. I'm not saying that someone has to replace Johnston, but God, I can't put up with Alston being in the team much longer. I don't care how much of a hater I sound like. I cannot do it. I genuinely can't. The window hasn't been good enough. We've lost our best player, and I thought we needed a winger with him anyway. We still have Maida and Abada starting. Abada was off today, as was the whole team. But I do agree we need a winger. But Abada is class. We know that. Let's see what else has been said. A lot of just talk about get the French left back in. Absolutely. I agree. We need a left back. I think we got like, you know, I've on my channel, I feel guilty, but I've not put enough stress. Pardon me, sorry. I've not put enough stress, enough importance on the fact that we actually do need a goalkeeper. We do need it, and every performance just sort of it just highlights it with even more importance that a goalkeeper is needed. And we've heard nothing. We heard those slight murmurs about Livakovic, which were ultimately pie in the sky stuff. But it shouldn't take away from the fact that we should be looking at a goalkeeper, and the fact we don't have one is pretty poor. Mr. Celtic with a 5, thank you very much. Saying no excuses for Rodgers today, Ryan. That team wins under Ange. Should be good enough to win. Should have appointed a manager that's similar to Ange. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and change my mind on Brendan Rodgers or anything like that. We've got a world-class manager. We've got someone who's really, really good, who got it wrong today, as it happens in football sometimes. No manager's invincible to a loss. No manager is invincible to a poor performance. We've seen managers lose games. However, the fashion and how we lost today, yeah, absolutely, I do agree. There is no excuses for Rodgers. It is poor. But that's the kind of thing that you hope does actually help us move on and get better. You know, we lose out in a trophy, which is the hardest part in it. As I said, if this was a league game, we lost today, we dropped 3 points. Come the end of the season, if we're still in cup competitions, we win a treble, yada yada, we're in a really good position. But it's not. You're out the cup. You've got to deal with that. You've got to take it in the chin. But, yeah. It's just difficult. I know, you know, this doesn't help. It's always going to be split because of the way that Rodgers left the club as well. You know, that's probably one of the driving factors. I think that you look at anybody else coming in, if it was a new manager and we lost today, I think there would be more of a unanimous backing and there would be more of a unanimous sort of defending of them because they're new and it's like, oh, let's give them a chance. But because Rodgers has the previous and because he left the club in the manner he did, it's very easy for people to talk. And look, listen, I'm not going to take away anybody's opinion from them. It's just my opinion. I still have faith. I still like Rodgers. Just because we've lost a game doesn't mean I'm going to suddenly up sticks and cancel my season ticket and start booing the guy. Like, you know, we've lost a game of football. I know how it feels to lose. It's not nice. But, you know, I've been here. I've done the dance. I've seen us losing cup competitions my whole life. Under better managers. You know what I mean? So, aye, it's just one of those ones that I hope that it kicks him up the arse, and I hope that it just kicks the board up the arse. Because we need it. We need the backing. And we need the better performances. So, aye. Let's see. We'll get a couple more comments in. Let's see. It is what it is. We were awful. Fair play to Kelly. Expected to be not bad this year. Next game will be very important. Exactly, Joe Boy. We need to buck up our ideas big time heading into the next game. Listen, that's the way I look at this. I seen Adrian, his comments flow off screen, but the guy Adrian McGuinness, I seen his comment a second ago talking about how, it's one cup game. You don't need to suddenly... And I agree. That is my outlook on it. Listen, when if we got to the point where Rodgers was dropping points left, right, centre, we were out both cups, we were losing heavily in Europe, yeah, of course I'd turn around and say, right, maybe it's time to consider our options. But, listen... But we need to win in that derby, absolutely. Because if we don't perform well in that derby, I don't even think we do need to win it. You don't want to lose any derby game. But what we need is better performances. What we need is a good performance. And that's the tough thing about today as well. The fact you lose a game, right? But if you lose a game when you play poorly, it makes it worse. If we lost today with hitting the post 10 times and narrowly missing out and getting decisions against us left, right, centre, a lot of people would have come on going, we were unlucky to lose today. It was against us. We should have had better decisions. But it's not. We played really poorly, and that always makes it worse. Thank you, Patrick, saying Yang and Haxa both need to start now. Wow. So what happens to Abad if we started both of them? That's the question. Yeah. Thank you to Mr. Celtic again, £5 saying, do you see a style of play? Knutson, easier transition. It's not all about glamour. No, I agree. With someone like Knutson, it would have been an easier transition. It's probably a similar style to Ange in the sense that players can get used to it better. But at one point or another, you're going to appoint a manager who isn't going to play the exact same style of football. And your market of managers becomes thinner and thinner as time goes on. So, it was always going to change at some point. I wanted Rodgers as a manager personally. I accepted the fact there was going to be an adaptation period. There was going to be a period of transition in between styles of football and players getting used to that. It's not an excuse for losing games. They've also got to consider would Knutson have taken the job as well, because a lot of people, especially after losses, and thank you for the donation, Mr. Celtic, it's a good point. But a lot of people always jump on after games like this. And results like this, and years gone by, people always jump on and, they say, what if we done this and that, presuming that would have happened. But we never really know if it would have. So, thank you as well to Celtic Glasgow for the £2. Anyway, I'm coming up for the half-hour mark, so probably going to wrap it up there. Extremely poor from Celtic today, extremely disappointing from Celtic today. There will be no treble this season. And it's back to the drawing board for Brendan Rodgers and Celtic moving into next week and moving closer to the derby. And more importantly, we talk about the derby being of importance to Brendan Rodgers and Celtic in the coming weeks. I think the most important landmark that we need to look at over the next couple of weeks is the end of the transfer window. That's the significant point in time. Celtic board need to wake up. They need to back the manager. They need to spend money before the pressure builds. This was the thing that we had to accept with Brendan Rodgers coming back. And I accept that if things didn't go well and if things did backfire, that the pressure would come on very early. And that's now going to happen with an early cup exit. So, board need to wake up. Board need to spend money. But we'll talk about it and we'll discuss it throughout the entirety of the week. I'm seeing I hate when we lose, man. Because some people just lose the plot fully. Jesus, I've seen some things put in the chat right now that if I was a more Mark Goldbridge type YouTuber and I just shouted and all the rest of it, God, you'd get me biting, but I'm not going to bother. So lads, like and subscribe. I appreciate you for watching. We'll condense everything in much neater form over the next few days. Cheerio, next time.